Good morning, Year 2. It's Miss Addy. Our learning question for maths today asks us, can I measure length in metres? Our steps to success say, I can identify how many centimetres are in 1 metre. I know which tools can be used to measure in metres. And I can record the length of an object in metres and centimetres. Our first star word is the word length, and that is what we've been learning to measure this week. And measure is another one of our star words, so we're thinking how we can measure the length of items. We've got the word centimetre, which we learnt about in yesterday's lesson, and in brackets you can see cm, and cm is short for centimetres. Today we're going to learn about the word metre, and we're going to find out what the word estimate means. What is length? Can you think back to the last few lessons? What do you know about length? Length is a measure of the longest side of an object. To find the length, we need to measure. The last few days, we've been learning about standard units of measurement and non-standard units of measurement. Here is a table, and we're going to sort some objects into the right part of the table. Here we've got a tape measure, so measuring using a tape measure, measuring using cubes, measuring using a ruler, measuring using paper clips, measuring using sweets, and measuring using a meter stick. What I'd like you to do is pause the video and sort the pictures into the correct part of the table. Remember, standard units of measurement are when we measure in centimetres, and this is what we would typically use to measure. Non-standard units of measurement are objects and items that we don't normally use to help us measure. So pause the video and have a go. Well done if you sorted it correctly and it looks like our table on the screen. We can see that the ruler, the tape measure and the meter stick are all tools that measure using non-standard units, and that's because they measure using centimetres and metres. But we can see that the paper clips, the cubes and the sweets, they're all forms of non-standard units of measurement because we don't normally measure using these items. Yesterday we learnt how to measure using a ruler. Can you remember the measurement we use when we use a ruler? It's circled in red on the screen. Good, you might be able to see the letters cm circled, and cm is short for the word centimetres. So when we measure using a ruler, we find out how long the item is, the longest side, we record the number, and then we write cm after to show us how many centimetres long something is. When we measure, we must start from the number 0. It's very important so that we get an accurate measurement. And then we look for the closest number that the object ends on. Sometimes we need to round it up. This rubber here ends exactly on the number 5, so we can see that the rubber is 5 centimetres long. Most rulers that we use are usually 30 centimetres long, just like this one on the screen. Rulers are a helpful tool to measure smaller objects. So objects that you might have in your classroom, like pens and pencils. Can you think of any other smaller objects that a ruler could measure? Maybe a phone, or a plastic bottle, or some chapter books. But what if I wanted to measure objects that are longer than 30 centimetres? So can you think of some objects that are longer than a 30 centimetre ruler? What about a door? Do you think I'd be able to use a ruler to measure the length of the door? Would I be able to use a ruler to measure the length of a car? Or the length or height of a bus? What about if I wanted to use a ruler to measure an elephant's trunk? Or a giraffe's neck? Do you think that a ruler would be an appropriate tool to measure these things' lengths? I don't think so. It would take us a long time. So we could use a different tool. We could use a tape measure. Or we could use a meter stick. These tools might be more helpful when we're measuring larger and longer items. Both meter sticks and tape measure in something called meters. Can you say that? Meters. But what is a meter? Have you heard of that word before? 1 meter is 100 centimeters. So 1 meter is roughly the length of a guitar. So if we want to measure how long an item is, and we know it could be up to 1 meter or longer than 1 meter long, we could use our tape measure or meter stick. But we still need to make sure that we follow the same rules as when we're using a ruler. So have a look at these pictures of these children measuring using a meter stick. They're still following the same rules as when they measure using a ruler. They're making sure that their item is straight and that the ruler is straight and things are lined up. There are no gaps and no overlapping. And they're measuring from the number 0, just like we do when we use a ruler. Some things that we want to measure might be longer than 1 meter, but shorter than 2 meters. Just like the height of this woman. So we would measure her height using a meter stick, like as though we were using a ruler, but I can see here that this woman, her height is longer than 1 meter. So I could use a second meter stick to help me out. But I can see that her height is longer than 1 meter, but shorter than 2 meters. So have a look at the arrow. Can you see her height? Can you work it out in centimeters? If I know 1 meter is 100 centimeters, and I will see where the arrow has landed, I can see the arrow has landed on 75 centimeters. I can see this woman is 1 meter and 75 centimeters. 1 meter is 100 centimeters, so she is 175 centimeters tall. We were shown a brand new star word at the beginning of our lesson today. It began with an E. Do you remember what it is? It's the word estimate. Can you say that? Estimate. Estimating is when we decide on a number or a value that is close enough to the right answer. So here's an example for you. Have a look at those marbles in the jar. We can't count them all out. We can't count them one by one, so we'd need to estimate how many there are. What do you think? Can you think of a sensible guess? 10 marbles? What do you think? No, definitely more than 10. 50 marbles? No, I think there's more than 50 marbles. What about 100 marbles? I think 100 marbles is a sensible estimate. We are not talking exact answers here, but answers that are close enough. So I don't know that there are 100 marbles in the jar, but that's my estimate, and it's a sensible estimate, and it's close enough. If I know that a guitar is about 1 meter long in length, then I can estimate that a vase with flowers is shorter than 1 meter long. Do you agree with me? Yeah, So what other objects do you think are shorter than 1 metre? Pause the video and have a discussion. So if I know that a guitar is about 1 metre long in length, then I can estimate that a lorry is longer than 1 metre. Do you agree? Yes, definitely. We know that guitar is 1 metre long roughly, and I know a lorry is longer than a guitar. Therefore, the lorry is longer than 1 metre. What other objects do you think are longer than 1 metre? Pause the video and have a discussion. Here's your task for today, Year 2. Here is a table. It's blank at the moment. Part of my table says less than 1 metre. The other part of the table says longer or taller than 1 metre. And you need to sort the objects into the correct part of the table. We've got a giraffe, a mouse, a door, a crocodile, a tennis racket and ball, a ladybird, a man and a child, and a banana. Afterwards, you could add your own items from your house into the table, but you might need to estimate how long they are to be able to put them into the table. Enjoy your task, Year 2. Goodbye.